Hey everybody, welcome back to the Comic Wall. It's your girl, the Outcast Angel, and today let's talk about issue 3 of Mirka Andolfo's Unnatural. This issue was all kinds of crazy because, uh, just, whoa, guys, I have absolutely no idea where this series is going, but wherever it's heading to, it's getting there fast, I think. And it's just intense. So I really hope you guys are following along with this series because it's beautifully drawn and it's just a phenomenal story. So if you guys aren't checking it out, check it out. I highly recommend it. And let's go ahead and jump right into this. So we start off back into the flashback we saw with Leslie as a child back in issue 2, after she found out that her mom is having an affair with a lion. And as we know that the world that Leslie Blair lives in, it's highly illegal for interspecies relationships. So with her and her family being pigs, and obviously her mom sleeping with a lion, that's highly frowned upon. And so after she makes a ruckus trying to get away, her mom finds her and says, whatever you think you saw or heard, I don't want to know because you didn't see it. You hear me? You don't say a word of this to anyone. And if you do, Daddy and I could lose everything. The house, our jobs, even you. Promise me you'll keep this quiet, Leslie. Promise. And so she does. And then now we're back in the present day where Leslie is getting checked out for this date that the reproduction program has set up for her. And as we saw the last 2 issues, the reproduction program is this program where you're automatically put into, once you hit the age of 25, in order to find a suitable mating partner for the rest of your life, because that's what this whole world deals with, is the what is it called, the protection and the basically the protection of species. So there's no interspecies mating or relationships. It needs to be within the same species and the same the different sex. So it's basically a play on like the interracial and LGBT style relationships we see nowadays. And so we see Leslie going through all these different treatments. She's getting stress tests done. She's getting like basically a physical, and then an all-out makeover, in which when she's finally done, she looks gorgeous. Even for a pig girl, she looks absolutely gorgeous. And she's still a bit uncomfortable. I mean, obviously with all these people fussing over her, and with the fact that she's being set up on a date with a guy she doesn't even know, I would be uncomfortable too, honestly. And so Virgil, her dating consultant, or her Cupid essentially, sees her off in this really nice limo. And, she's off on her date. And we see Virgil here saying, bye, more like farewell, I'd say. I'd rather quit than see her again. Never seen such an insufferable pig. So, obviously, he didn't enjoy his time with her very much. And so, on the drive over there, she's pretty much freaking out. She's saying, not quite the chatty types, huh? I'm so nervous. What will he look like? With my luck, he'll be vulgar and gross. And it's not like it's not going to work. I can feel it. I'll have to repeat the program maybe hundreds of times while I go broke. Well, broker than I am now. And then we see this man open up the door, and turns out this is her date, and he is hot. He is absolutely gorgeous, and even, like I said, even for a pig guy, or for a guy who's a pig, and she's blown away by this. She cannot take her eyes off of him, and so she's starting to think maybe the program isn't so bad. And so it turns out this guy's name is Nicholas, but most people call him Jones. And so they go out to this restaurant for sushi, and so they're even talking together and saying, "We're going for sushi. We're going for sushi. I love sushi." And so, it seems like a match made in heaven, honestly. But we cut away from them for a minute in order to see Leslie's best friend Trish going to this house where where she's looking for someone named Mr. Gambit, who turns out he's the writer of this book that she found that actually has a main character who is a pig with blue hair falling in love with a white wolf, which we see this being familiar with Leslie's situation in her very romantic dreams, And so she's able to find his home, and his son actually answers the door. Turns out Mr. Gambit is pretty old and pretty off his feet, and so his son leads him to meet with her. Well, leads Trish to meet with him. And so we see here that Trish gets a bit of a history lesson because Mr. Gambit tells her that this book full of fairy tales isn't a work of fiction. It's based on an ancient civilization called the Tiwa, or the Tiwi. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna say the Tiwa because it just sounds better. Anyway, turns out they lived in a harmonic town isolated from the world, and turns out that few copies of their myths still exist. Given the type of society that they live in today, most of their stories have been destroyed, and most of their history has been pretty much wiped out, except for his book. And so it turns out that the Tiwa is not fiction. It still exists by his account. He says he saw it with his own eyes, untouched by the modern world. Everyone there lives in peace and harmony. And you asked about blue hair. The protagonist of my book is one of those brides, Bess. Turns out some of their women are considered to be brides of the ancient spirits they believe protect their land. So turns out this blue-haired pig named Bess, which our blue-haired protagonist Leslie is named Les, so there's some coincidental details slipping through in this situation. Anyway, she pretty much lets Mr. Gambit pretty much lets Trish have these notes that he has on his book in order to figure out or do some research of her own in order to figure out what's going on with Leslie. And so he says, I don't have much longer for this world. These notes aren't going to do much good for me anyway. And so he says something very interesting in this last parting sentence where he says, I spent my life exploring the world and telling people what I saw. After visiting Tiwa, only bad luck followed me. I'm glad you're interested, but promise me you'll be careful with what you find. And so Trish obviously promises and says, I'm doing this for a friend. Now we jump in on Leslie and her little hot date, and it seems like they're getting along like a house on fire. I mean, they're enjoying their sushi, and they're enjoying some, playful flirting and a lot of wine, for one thing. And as Jones is putting on the moves on her and everything, they end up leaning in for a kiss, but then Leslie has a vision. She automatically, right before their lips touch, she automatically flashes back to the dream. She says, Jones said the same thing. Love is a thing that's programmed. I have to do what's normal for my species, but feelings are the most normal things in the world, right? Basically, what she's feeling is that we see her flash back to the white wolf of her dreams, in which, she honestly feels more in love with what she thinks is a fantasy than this pretty hot guy that's in front of her, because, I mean, she's forced on this date. She really has no choice in the matter of this date or this program, and so she comes to her senses, saying, "I'm not ready for this. Maybe we're moving too fast, or maybe I'm just not ready for this, you know." And so she gets up to leave, saying, "You're a really great guy, Jones, but I think the program got it wrong." And so she basically leaves, and as she's trying to leave, one of the cooks actually tries to stop her. And so as she breaks away, Jones walks in saying, Les, wait, we can fix everything. We can fix this. But then we see everyone in the restaurant looking at them. More specifically, looking at her. And so Leslie notices this, and she freaks. She runs. And we see Jones saying, close all the exits now. I want her rounded up for the sanctuary. What's the sanctuary? And so turns out everyone was in on this. And we see Jones pull out a gun after Leslie manages to find some cover and says, you know what happens if we make the glance wait. What's the glance? And what kind of name is that, for one thing? Anyway, Leslie tries to make a break for it, but suddenly she's not feeling very well. Whatever was in the wine she was drinking has caused her to lose consciousness. And when she comes to, she's dressed in some very translucent veils, and we see this man standing over her in this skull headdress and tribal clothing. And so we see him preaching, saying the albino has slept for far too long, trapped for centuries. The time has come for him to join his bride. Soon both of them will be as one, as they await the full awakening of his power. And then someone says, "Wait, glance, she's stirring. Stop the ceremony. The pig girl wasn't sedated properly. Maybe we should." And the priest says, "No, the chosen girl will only be 25 once. We don't have a chance. We've already waited long enough." And he cuts himself with this knife that he was preparing to cut Leslie with. And then Leslie wakes up, and she's back in her bed, soaking wet from sweat this time, of fear, and she's back in her bed. She has no idea how she got there, and so she rushes out to find Trish, who's not at home. And so turns out she gets a call from Derek, who's saying that he'll be right there, because Leslie's freaking out. She's saying, "I know it sounds crazy, but my shadow feels heavy, like a rock. I feel sick." And so the doorbell rings, and Leslie answers, but while Derek's at the door, he's not alone. The police are also there. And so turns out one of the police officers is saying, "Leslie Blair, you're in a lot of trouble. We're going to have to ask you to come with us. We talked to Virgil. Do you think your social assistant wouldn't know you vanished from the perfect date he prepared for you? You skipped out on the date. Now you can pay the fine or deal with the summons." But she was obviously there. We saw her there, and we saw what happened after she was drugged. And so turns out we hear this, one of the officers saying, "A misunderstanding. That's exactly why we're here. If you weren't at your date last night, then where were you between 7 and 11 p.m.? Where were you when your roommate, Trish Freya, was murdered?" So, holy shit. Trish is dead? Wow, that hit me hard, because we just saw her. We saw her, and we just saw where she was, and she was fine. It didn't seem like anything was going wrong. But if whatever happened at that restaurant was true, could there be bigger things playing in part in this whole city, in this whole society that's going on, because it just seems too perfect. It just seems way too perfect that Leslie was put in this situation, and now she has to deal with this and the fact that her best friend is gone. Like, holy crap. I'm just having a hard time trying to put this together, because I just can't wait for the next issue. Anyway, that's the end of this issue and this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, drop a like, show the love, hit that subscribe button to get more of my videos, ring the bell to get notifications or when I post new videos, so that way you guys stay updated and don't miss out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.